And good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of The Wrap. Unfortunately, something's gone wrong with all our music tonight, so hence no intro music at this stage, except for my phone just dinging. But I'm sure you'll be able to put up with it, and I might insert some music later for those listening on demand. So without any further ado, the introductions. Nikki and Macca, how are we going, guys?
Yeah, very good on this bleak, weary, dreary night.
Much better than our footy team.
Oh, yeah, well, that's not hard, is it?
No.
Not hard at all. Yeah, pretty dismal sort of a weekend of footy. Only made a little bit better by not only Port getting done today by the Bombers, but also, did anyone watch Daniel Ricciardo just tear up the Chinese Grand Prix?
No, I didn't see that. What happened?
Oh, my God. He's had a horror weekend, he qualified. He only just got on the track just before the end of qualifying, qualified sixth, and has just pulled off some absolutely amazing moves to come from sixth and win the Chinese Grand Prix a couple of hours ago. It was just a sensational drive. It really was. So that
might actually entice me back to watching F1s.
Well, considering how uncompetitive that car has been, and you know how much pressure he's under from that young Dutch guy. It was just an amazing drive from Daniel. He's good to watch when he's on song, and he was certainly on song today. The move that he pulled on Valtteri Bottas was just stunning. It really was.
If his car's going right, he's got real talent.
Oh, definitely, Macca. Definitely. They just need to give him something competitive, don't they? Anyway, let's move along from that, and let's have a look at.
Do we have to?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Unfortunately, that's what we're here for. So let's look at the weekend's results, and we'll skip Friday night for a moment and move on to Saturday, where we saw GWS beating a gallant Fremantle in a fairly low-scoring game at Manuka, 82-51 in the end. Anyone actually watch that?
I did. I enjoyed the game, actually, because Freo were gallant and GWS were just too classy. They just had a much greater depth of players in the midfield, and they also tagged Fife, and they kept him back to about 25 possessions, which is compared to his 37 last week, which had a big influence on the game. But a very good standing game to watch. I thought I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Had a big influence on my dream team. Fife was my captain.
Oh, no, I didn't know that.
Well, your stuff then.
Yeah.
I've had Caniglia since the start of the year. I picked him up right up at the beginning, and he's been a bargain buy. He's a very good midfielder. He can get it in and out. He just does the whole lot.
Yeah, good player. What did we have next? We had the Tigers getting up over a very, very disappointing
Getting
Brisbane.
up? I don't think that's quite... That kind of makes it sound like it was really hard. It wasn't hard.
Well, it was probably hard for them to find the motivation to come out after half-time, because Brisbane certainly didn't come out in the first quarter, or first half. 110-17. Brisbane only scoring their first goal with about, a minute to go in the third quarter. Absolutely terrible. This is AFL football, folks.
I thought it'd be a shit game. I didn't bother to watch it. I thought it'd be a shit game, but it was a greater shit game than I thought it was going to be. The Brisbane Lions, they've been going not too badly, but they went backwards 100 mile an hour in this one.
I think Dad and I made the right choice to head down to a very windy Noarlunga and watch the SANFL.
Yeah, I was listening to bits and pieces of the footy on the radio on Saturday, and that one was just a joke. This is supposed to be the elite standard, at least elite football competition in the land. Come on. Anyway, moving on. Western Bulldogs were in it for a long, long time against Sydney as well before going down. Sydney getting up 86-79. I actually picked the Bullies, so wasn't surprised to see them get amongst it.
I tipped them as well, and they actually should have won the game because they just blew good shots for goal, and the one thing that got them beaten was Franklin. They held him relatively well, but in the last quarter or so, Franklin got away and he is just the best player in the. Well, put it this way, he's the greatest match winner in the competition.
Yeah, it's most damaging, isn't he?
Yep. He was the difference between the side by a country mile, and Sydney aren't going all that well, but they're relying very heavily on him.
Yeah, they are at the moment, and he's delivering.
This round there were a couple of the closer games, but it was the round of the smashings, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's another one coming up, West Coast versus Gold Coast. Not really a surprise. Gold Coast, a pretty tough opening draw because of the Com Games, and they'd spent their second week in Perth and got smacked to the tune of 80 points against West Coast, 139-59. Fairly predictable result there, guys, I reckon.
Yeah, I went between that game and the North Melbourne and Carlton game because both are shit house and I didn't know which one to watch.
I turned on the Com Games.
Yeah, I just kept going backwards and forwards and not being very satisfied with either, really.
Yeah, no.
Well, even though Gold Coast were getting smashed, because I watched kind of about the first half and a little bit of it, then I went, oh, no, this football's now gotten too bad. And I wasn't interested in watching the North Carlton. I still think there's a lot of positives that we're seeing out of Gold Coast. We know they've got this horrendous start because of the Com Games. But I think Dew's he's come in with a game plan that's actually working fairly well for them. So it could be interesting to see how, if injuries go their way towards the end of the year, I think they actually might cause a bit more damage.
Don't disagree with that, Nicky, actually.
And Lynch was injured in that game as well with an ankle, which took away a great scoring possibility. He came on a couple of times, but he wasn't right. So, look, they're going to improve. And also, when you think about the fact that they travelled to Perth a week ago, then they've hung around for a week in Perth. It's unnatural for what our footballers do.
Yeah.
So you really couldn't, as you said, Phoenix, you couldn't expect much really from them.
No, look, I don't think so.
By the sounds of it, the families also kind of came over as well because they gave them each like apartments.
They did.
So they tried to make it as normal as you could, but it was a very difficult situation they're in.
But by the very nature of doing that with apartments with your family, you really got a more of a holiday atmosphere than a business one.
Yeah, I mean, what else could they do really, though, Macca? I mean, it's
they're
just
going to
such a
lose either
unique
way.
sort of... Yeah, that's right. I mean, you know, they've sacrificed Gold Coast a little bit this year with the draw, and I'm with you. There's a few signs in the back half of last year, and I think Dew's a good coach and got them on the right track, and I do see them as late season disruptors. Both them and the other mob that I can't think of right now.
Well, it certainly isn't Carlton.
No, it's not Carlton. Brisbane, actually, despite their loss, I reckon they'll only get better, Brisbane. But anyway, let's move on. That Blundstone Arena game, goodness me. North Melbourne v Carlton. North getting up predictably 116-30, so another 86-point smashing there. We picked it on Tuesday. I think I said it was a pretty shitful round of football coming up, and it didn't disappoint in that regard.
And then Murphy actually heard his plantar fascia pop. So they say that actually might be the better end of it, because if it's completely torn and then it actually heals quicker than trying to manage it through. But yeah. I think they're in a world of hurt now.
Yeah, I agree.
I think he
and it's showing up that Silvani actually isn't this great recruiter.
Oh, look, hang
on. No, he can recruit good players. They cannot develop them.
Well, I think Bolton might have gone a bit early on turning that team a little bit more aggressive. The defensive tactics last year served them fairly well. But it took Melbourne 2 or 3 years to really bed in any sort of defensive action, and I think we're seeing at the moment that Carlton are a bit at sea, trying to get a little bit more ahead of the ball.
I think you're right, Phoenix. Melbourne went really. This is Melbourne's 4th year, and they're still not quite there.
Yep. Yeah.
We've discussed this last year, and I think what it is that you've got those high draft picks. They have never had to work on that defensive action. And we're seeing it this year. Melbourne, and particularly the game that happened today, which I know you're going to get to shortly, their defence was not good.
No.
Even though they brought in an $800,000 player.
Yeah.
And do have some experienced heads down there, I mean, with Lewis, etc. But have they stuck too long? I think Bolton possibly actually looked at Melbourne And did they stick too long to the defence?
Oh,
They can't do that switch. It'll be interesting to see how it actually does eventuate for Carlton. But I think there's serious development issues at Carlton.
I think. Sorry, Macca, go on.
I was just going to say, I think Nicky's underestimating Hawthorn's improvement this year.
Oh, they have done well.
Anyway, we're not at Hawthorn yet. Personally, I think that it's the defensive deficiencies at Carlton and Melbourne, for that matter, lie more in their midfield willingness to work, spread defensively.
They have one brilliant recruit in Curnow.
Oh, yeah. He's
a star.
Yeah.
He's a star. I think we mentioned Kudafides last time.
Yeah. It's a pretty good comparison. Anyway, the best result of the weekend, the Bombers getting up over Port Adelaide, 106 to 84.
I feel dirty. I'm American for Essendon. It's the wrong
podcast for that, Nikki, sorry.
Hey, I'm not on any of those thoughts.
Yeah, it was a good result.
They made me barrack for Essendon. You know how much I hate them.
Yeah.
I really thought they would beat them. On the fast deck there, I just thought Port would be found out.
Yep.
No Ruckman.
And look, that was just the minute that they confirmed no Ruckman, they weren't going to win.
I do think that the ruck position is underrated. We had a bit of a discussion about that last week, and Pete was saying with regards to the Sauce Grundy matchup that it wasn't going to be pivotal. Well, I don't know. I think a good mobile ruckman is pivotal, and the lack of a competitive ruck can really work against you, and I think it did against Essendon for Port Adelaide.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the Hawks got up over what I would describe as a pretty disappointing Melbourne. They'd be scratching their heads at the moment, Melbourne. Not a good start to the season for them, and going down pretty comfortably, 115 to 48.
They've got a lot of players out of form at the moment, and one of them includes the guy that they got off of us for 2 first-round drafts.
No, Macca, it's going to take him 8 weeks.
Yeah, he's got another 4 weeks.
It's going to take him 8 weeks.
For fuck's sake, everybody's... They're all playing on the same oval.
I know. It's pitiful, isn't it?
And he's a loose man in defence. I mean, seriously, how long does it take you 8 weeks to figure out how to play like that?
It's a bit of a cop-out, isn't it?
You know, seriously, Goodwood must have been pissed when he said that. I mean, that's just a stupid comment. And, with the errors that he made today, particularly with his disposal as well. I mean, he's
you could hear the Melbourne crowd groan when he was about to get the ball.
Yeah, his disposal was very, very poor. And I can tell you what, that's got nothing to do with 8 weeks. They can wait 8 years and it'll still continue.
Well, what it does, I reckon, point to, though, to a degree, I think, and maybe you tell me if I'm reading too much into this, but I think it shows how predictable the Crows' structure was, that you could almost turn on and kick to a position by memory because you'd know that there'd be someone there. And I don't think Melbourne, their structure, I don't think is quite as predictable. I don't think the players have the structure bedded in as well as Adelaide.
Well, that's 100% right because they have no structure.
Oh, well, and I think that does hurt disposal efficiency. I think because you've got to react in a split second, and Jake could be used to turning certain ways and seeing Jake Kelly or seeing Rory Laird or someone like that, and he doesn't have those anymore.
Yeah, you had teammates who would work really hard to get to those positions, and you knew. I used to love. And I still actually do. I love watching our defence work because it is a team. It's a unit. And they don't stick to, I'm on this player. It's okay. If we have to switch, we know who switched and do we need to come over and cover and give him a little bit extra help, or can we actually be a bit more attacking?
Let's not talk us up too much this week.
Previously.
Previously.
We'll just pretend Friday night didn't happen. This discussion is not talking about Friday night.
Unfortunately, we can't.
This game, I thought, you're talking about Ruckman, Max Gorn played a magnificent game. He dominated, he did everything possible to help, but even a great ruckman can't get a side up if the rest of the team won't follow.
No, that's right.
Well, they did leave him off for very long periods of time. They rested him on the bench for quite, and that's when Hawthorn really got going, and they just couldn't catch him.
But I think beware the Hawks. I think I'm not saying they're necessarily premiers, but they're going to be a lot harder to beat than we all thought they were.
They are going to have a bit of a difficult run, though, because they've lost Fiopolo and Rioli. Rioli's not only done his medial ligament in his knee.
Those injuries will hurt them. Yeah, I agree with that.
And the last game of the round, Geelong versus St Kilda. Geelong 103 to 56. Yeah, no more word on Dylan Robertson either. That was
he went to the Epworth Hospital, where he's currently being monitored. So he is awake. He is actually alert. I don't think they actually said, because last time they actually said he's had issues with delayed concussion and he had slurred speech. I don't think he did this time, but they're monitoring his heart.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Particularly with that type of collapse, that's what they look into, and I'm sure that they will actually go. They will currently be looking over the tapes to see if there was an earlier collision that might have caused a delayed concussion.
Yeah, just for anybody who don't know what we're talking about, Robertson was slightly behind play, but it's clearly on the film. He was starting to walk like a drunk, and he was wobbling all over the place, and then he just fell down behind play.
And he was 10 metres away from the nearest player, so it was very disconcerting to watch.
And one of his teammates just spotted it straight away and just legged it towards him. They were just like, sorry, my teammate is in trouble. That is actually more important.
Exactly.
And he was trying to get up, and they're like, no, stay down. At least he listened.
Yeah. And look, the Cats got up predictably 103 to 56, but really the only thing to say out of that game is our best wishes and thoughts to Dylan Robertson and his family and the Saints, because that had shades of Phil Hughes about it for a minute, and I think we're all very bloody sensitive when it comes to that, seeing that sort of stuff on a sporting ground.
That's actually the second collapse that has happened on a 40 field. It did happen in the VFL earlier this year, a couple of rounds ago. So there's been two of them, which is a little concerning. But luckily, the other guy is okay, and hopefully Dylan will be okay as well.
Yeah.
But I changed my tip at the last minute, because originally I'd actually tipped the Saints.
You did not.
Oh, Nicky, you've been drinking again.
Down Cardinia Park.
I don't drink. I know. Then I turned it back and went, well, no, because it's that trip back from West Coast. This is actually the first team that's won coming back from
Nicky,
Western Australia.
Yeah,
but then I went, no, St Kilda are just hopeless. So I've got 7 tips.
No, I got 6 this week.
I got 7.
Yeah, what did you get, Macca?
Actually, in the tips that I submitted, I got 8 out of 9.
Oh, good boy. No, 6 for me. Anyway, let's move on, and we've got a pretty dismal sort of a result to cover from Friday night.
Boo.
Very, very disappointing Adelaide going down to Collingwood, who were just prepared to work a lot harder, and in the end it was 16-10, 106 to Collingwood versus Adelaide, 9 goals for 58, a margin of 48 points. Before we get into any sort of deep analysis, any sort of initial comments, guys?
I have 3 P words.
Go on.
It was putrid, it was pathetic, and it was piss weak.
Well, Malcolm Blight used to have a saying that in football, you get what you deserve, and we got what we deserved. The arrogance of the coach, Phoenix and I were talking about this before the show, and the arrogance to actually bring in a tall when it's wet, when we were already looked to be too top-heavy up forward, really should have been taking one out, and we brought in another one, and, the forward line didn't function at all. There was no pressure once the ball hit the ground. We were obviously over too top-heavy. We had many other failings, but as Malcolm Blight said, in football, you get what you deserve.
I think the selection might... I have this feeling, and what would I know? I'm just an outside observer like the rest of us, but I just have this feeling at the moment that the club is very happy with itself. In spite of losing a grand final, I think the vibe around the Adelaide Crows at the moment has been one of overall contentment. We've got record membership numbers, we've got sponsorship coming on board. We're the successful team in South Australia, etc., etc., etc. And the club isn't acting like a club that has just lost a grand final and wants to atone. I know it's a long season, But what the players dished up last night was reflective of an attitude that started at selection, and I think starts even before that, of, like you said, Macca, just arrogance. We didn't want to work. We didn't want to run. I think there was some ridiculous stat at halftime where Collingwood collectively had covered 10 more kilometres as a team up to halftime than we had. Now, that is pure and simple work rate. And, you know, team balance aside, and yes, I agree with you, Macca, that we went in too tall, particularly with the inclusion of Fogarty. That's just a team that doesn't want to work.
No, I have to agree with you. And Nicky and I were discussing that before you came in, that the work rate was very, very disgusting, really. That's where she came up with all those lovely words. But the other thing too, and this is the only excuse I will give, and it's the only one I will give, is the fact is if you took out the two Crouch brothers and then wounded the next best, or maybe the one that was regarded as the best midfielder in any side, they would tend to struggle, because that's where the party starts. And there's no party for us at the moment, because I've never seen Jacobs get a bigger thrashing than he got from Grundy.
Oh, Macca, well, you are very lucky that we don't have music, and for people that are listening on delay down the track, I will insert some music at this point. But you know that song where the lady sings, "I'm sorry"? I was going to play that for you. I was going to play that for you because everything that I said last week about Sauce Jacobs was bloody true. And for that matter, Richie Douglas.
Look, I'll leave Nicky to talk to you about Douglas. But as far as Sauce went, look, last week I thought you were unfair to him. This week he was absolutely thrashed. Really, I mean, I would say it's one of the best rucking performances I've seen from a ruckman, because he is athletic, he's mobile. He with him going up for the ruck is only the start of it.
Exactly.
I mean, once the ball hits the ground, he's like another midfielder.
Exactly.
And it was an outstanding performance.
Yeah, and all the good rucks in the competition are like that. They can work at ground level, and for Brodie Grundy to get 33 touches in on a wet and windy night, including 12 clearances, Macca, that means he followed up his own work and dished it out to advantage 12 times.
Much as I hated it, I was in awe of his game.
It's a great game.
Being there, it was, our midfield was that putrid word. They were getting, so we actually set up fine for their outriders, but then those outrider players of ours would come in too close and just watch the ball and stand there. And that's when they would so easily just run it through. It was driving me nuts seeing it.
You're right, Nicky. She's right, though. It's like as if there's a vacuum cleaner in the middle just sucking them in towards the middle, and their opponents just stay out. Yeah.
We rely on individual efforts in the midfield, in the clearance department. We do not have a good structure, and it's not. I'm not only just saying this because we had a bad loss, but it's something that I think all of us have observed over the last few years. That continually allowing Collingwood to double team Rory Sloane at stoppage and at centre bounces, and then
we kept still trying to get it to him.
Again, it's just arrogance. The guy is against still side bottom, and whoever else happens to be in there at the moment. But side bottom was manning up on him. Side bottom's had 43 touches, so it's not as if side bottom was playing a hard tag. But they were simply chopping Sloane out of the contest by having two on him. If they've got two on Sloane, we've got a bloke free. So
precisely,
he either needs to man up, or if we're winning the ruck contest, which we weren't on Friday night, but the guy's got to make a decision fairly quickly. Do I go and make it a 2-on-2, or do I go and try and make something happen offensively? When Sauce is losing, I think it was 7 effective hitouts each to Grundy and Sauce. So Grundy certainly, whilst he got more hitouts than Sauce, it wasn't his hitouts that were doing the damage; it was the rest of his work. But what that free midfielder was doing in our centre clearance. Basically,
I have no idea.
Well, it was Bryce Gibbs. And it was Bryce Gibbs that the few times that Source did get a hit out to advantage, it was Bryce Gibbs that was getting fed. But the problem is that happened on so few occasions that we were outnumbered on the side of the stoppage that the ball was invariably coming towards because they had 2 on Sloane. And we just did it for the whole game.
Bryce was manning up on Pendlebury most of the time when he could, so he wasn't.
Or was it the other way around?
No, he was kind of minding Pendlebury.
You watch Bryce's positioning at centre. I'm not so much around the.
I was around the ground. That's what it was.
But at centre clearance, at centre bounce, invariably Bryce was to Source's right, forward to Source's right, and when Source would get a clear hit out, that's who was getting it. But unfortunately, more often than not, Source doesn't even hit out to that side. He hits to the left.
Always hits to the left, usually, yep.
So, I mean, if me and Macca can see it, why can't bloody Camporelli see it, for God's sake? I'm getting a bit tired of us dishing up the same garbage in the midfield at centre clearances every week.
So can we replace Camporelli with whoever's in charge of the midfield in the SANFL? Because
I wouldn't mind replacing with our forward coach.
I was going to say we've got a forward coach that would be a much better midfield coach.
Because Hunter and O'Brien actually had quite decent games against Hunter. I think had the better game, particularly up against Brooksby, who we know is actually a very decent ruck. O'Brien was getting beaten very similarly to the way that Source was. And we left. It was
Macca,
yeah.
You're just echoing through, mate. So I don't know whether you got a finger on a button or your sound's just up a little bit too high. But
I'll take it down a bit.
Thanks, mate.
Yeah, and we swapped him with Hunter, and Hunter, because he's more a Brodie Grundy type, was just able to work over Brooksby. Those two figured him out so quickly and got on top.
How's that? Is that
yeah.
better?
Yes.
Yeah, you're fine, mate. Thank
right.
you.
See,
Now,
if they had guts, I actually think Hunter should be in this week and Source should be dropped.
But I can remember when I was playing and I used to play as a midfielder, if we were getting beaten in the ruck, our coach of the day would instruct our ruckman to do exactly what their ruckman's doing, hitting into the same place.
Exactly.
And I would go on that, but then and I would go there, and I'd rove to their rucks.
It's not hard, mate.
Yeah, we don't do that. I know, but we don't do it. We've often, Source has actually been, past couple of years, he's been doing really well, but the opposition have been roving to his taps quite well, and our guys don't do it.
Yeah, I don't get it because it's not that hard to work out. If you're not winning the tap, why the hell don't you rove to the opposition?
Macca, it's arrogance. Again, we have this mentality at the Adelaide Football Club that we just need to do what we do better. So it's this false confidence of have trust in the system, have faith in the plans that we put in place. Don't change anything, just do it better. And I'm getting a bit tired of it because you need to be versatile, you need to be adaptable, you need to be able to change on the fly. And as an individual player, if I'm playing in the midfield and my ruckman is getting beaten, I want to get the ball, so I'm not going to stand on the wrong side. I'm going to do something about it. And to me, there's too much faith in being robotic and doing the same thing over and over again instead of adapting and saying, all right, well, at the moment, Source is getting beaten, so maybe we just need Source to nullify Grundy and bring the ball in close and get a few secondaries so we can get a few numbers around the stoppage. Because we're better at around the ground stoppage clearance work than we are at centre clearance work.
Yep.
So, there are things that you could do. And I didn't see our team collectively try anything different for the whole game. I don't think it didn't look like we cared.
And the other thing which was massively obvious, in my opinion anyhow, that our press was up far too high.
Way too high.
With no safeguards at the back.
Yeah, we got caught out a couple of times over the top, which is unusual.
Second half, we rectified that at the start of it. The second half, the start of it, we actually came out and we were a bit better and our structures were slightly better, and then it just fell in a heap again.
in a great big pile of shit.
Why does it take a break, though, to be able to sort that out? We've got 73 coaches in the coaches box. We've got a line coach for every line. We've got analysis. We've got the whole lot. I don't understand why it takes until the next quarter for a reconfiguration. It's not hard to tell a Tom Duday or a Luke Brown or someone like that to make sure that we've got one at the end of the contest. Tell Kyle Hardigan, make sure he's the last man, etc., etc. Just things like that. It doesn't seem as if we again, it seems to be this persistence in trying to do what we want to do better, and we don't pay enough respect to the opposition. We didn't pay any respect to the opposition in last year's grand final, and it feels like when we have these big losses, it's largely because from the moment we've gone to the selection table until the final siren, we've given the opposition no respect. We've paid no credence to what they're going to try and do.
Yeah, well, I think that's fair comment.
Anyway, let's get on to some head-to-head stats, shall we? 60 more disposals to begin with. Collingwood already pinpointed the fact that they're a handball-happy side, and they were certainly handball-happy on Friday night, but it worked for them because they were so clean, and largely that was because our tackle count was quite low, and the pressure that we put on them was quite low. 432 disposals to 372. Collingwood going at a 1-to-1 ratio. We predictably...
It was them flicking it around in those clearances to then get the free one, and then that burst out. So that's where that increase happened.
Yeah, credit.
Yeah, but it was really well done.
That's been their style all season, Nikki. Their stats show that they're about a 1-to-1 team at the moment. So that's a bit of a change for a Collingwood team. Normally they flick it out once and then sink the boot in. So the marking stats reflect that as well. We outmarked them 80 to 52, although largely irrelevant. They out-tackled us, considering they had more of the ball. 77 to 67 tackles is disappointing. We've talked about the hit-out situation. Brody Grunder getting the better of Source, 50 to 37. Here we go. You can't have 24 more clearances in a game of football and not try and rectify it at some stage. 57 clearances to 33, where we're supposed to be a clearance team, it's disgusting, Macca. It's disgusting. They had 58 to 49 inside 50s. Rebound 50s is an interesting one because, again, against St Kilda, it looked like for large portions of the game we were just happy to sit back. We almost conceded at various stages and just thought, we'll sit back and wait for the turnover. And I think
absorb it.
I don't know whether that was a tactic more rather than actually a reflection of attitude, and I think that sort of came through this week as well, except Collingwood were better and were able to get through our defensive press, and as you said, the press was up really high, and if you're going to have your press up high, you want to be crowding the ball, but we allowed them so much space that the high press was ineffective anyway. It was pointless.
It was so weird watching it because I'm watching the way Collingwood playing going, that's our old game plan. Well, if it's our old game plan, we should know how to stop it.
So 58 inside 50s to 49, Collingwood holding sway there. 198 at 163 contested possessions, as I mentioned. But Collingwood also won the uncontested count. Both teams went at around about the 69% disposal efficiency, which is pretty good on such a wet night. But then if you look at effective disposals, and this is an interesting take on this stat again, Nikki, and we touched on it briefly last week.
Yeah, what it actually really means. I don't think what they count as effective disposals for me wouldn't be effective.
Well, disposal efficiency, you would think, would be a percentage of effective disposals over total disposals, but it's not. Because we lost effective disposals 296 to 257, even though we won disposal efficiency percentage 69.1 to 68.5. So that's an interesting take on those two. You'd think that one's a number and one's a percentage, but they don't relate. It's weird, isn't it?
Lies, damn lies, and statistics.
Yeah. So, they were better with ball in hand. 296 effective disposals, 257, despite winning more contested ball. We beat them in contested marks, although it didn't really matter. Marks inside 50 was pretty even. We've talked about clearances. It just, again, centre clearances we actually won, which, makes me want to face palm myself. But it just didn't. Sometimes, as you say, Nick, it's lies in statistics, because it didn't feel as if we were as effective out of centre as they were.
Yeah, what happened? The end result of those clearances, though, that was the damaging part.
Well, and I guess when you look at what may be termed an effective disposal, maybe what may be termed a centre or a clearance is something that we need to look at. But here's the big stat: stoppage clearances 44-18. We got less than 20 stoppages out of 62 stoppages around the ground. That's disgusting.
It's one of the things we pride ourselves on.
I've never seen us get a stat like that. Never
Why?
have I
we
seen
don't
us
deserve to pride ourselves on it.
Yeah, but it's one of the things that we have done reasonably well throughout the course of the last couple of years under Pike's tenure. That is purely work rate. Pure and simple. It's just work rate. And the other thing that indicates work rate is something that we also tend to score very well in the stats department is score involvements. We tend to bring a lot of people into play. We use a lot of players, and players get around each other to bring others into the game. 53 score involvements to 106. So it was Collingwood showing us how to bring others into the play and to use their teammates and to get involved. Everything points to work rate. They gained 6,900 metres for the game. We gained 5,880 metres for the game. Again, work rate. Turnovers, intercepts, all that sort of stuff, even. Is that we did not want to run, and that is the tail of the tape as far as I'm concerned.
It was so obvious.
We didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
And Lynch was back to his front running best. When it gets hard, and because he is our link man, he has to work even harder in that respect so that we can start getting that ball down forward. He wasn't interested in running.
A lot of mates,
I know, but that's his role.
It is his role.
That is his role. And if he wants a longer... this is the week you'd actually go back and go, well, you want those extra years and you want more money. I'm sorry. If you're going to dish that up, no. You don't deserve it.
Yeah. It's very interesting, isn't it? Because I was thinking that the two blokes that haven't signed a contract and would be looking for more money if they are, and presuming that Sloane was going to stay, if you paid them on their performances on Friday night, they'd actually take a pay decrease.
Well, so far this season, Sloane hasn't fired a shot. Lynch has been crook and then had an okay game on his return and hasn't done much since.
He has done this before, though. His second game back is when he hasn't been good.
Well, and I think
the point is that they're not making a big case to get more money, are they?
No. Well, at this stage, as much as I love Rory Sloane, at this stage, I'm looking at Rankin in the top 10 and Lukosius and a couple of others and going, geez, I don't know,
future.
Rory. I reckon you might be worth more on the trade table than you are in the team at this stage. And yes, he's carrying the foot, but why don't they just rest him? Just rest him.
Yeah.
So I agree.
Yeah, it's pointless playing the guy unless you're going to do what Geelong do with Danger when he's injured and just play him up forward. Rory's not the same sort of player. He can take a contested grab.
They were putting him up forward, but he doesn't go well.
No, he's better when he can float across, float across the front of a pack. But when he's actually got to be one out or in a contested situation where the ball's being dropped on his head, he's just not big enough. He's a good overhead mark, but he's just not big enough. So, look, I think my take is that it was work rate, and it's reflected by our midfield numbers. And let's go through some individual stats because, as per usual, it was Rory Laird across half-back that that brought his usual consistent game. 37.
No, he did not.
Well, he
did. I'm sorry. That was the worst 30 possession game I have ever seen from anybody.
Come on, man.
No. In our area, anybody trying to pass to Laddie, we were yelling and booing.
Oh,
because he was making the worst fucking decisions I have ever seen him ever make.
In what respect?
I did not want him turning the ball over.
Well,
handballs were okay, but if his kicks were just putrid.
Yeah, well, maybe his teammates weren't running to position, Nick. Maybe his options were pretty dried up. That's what I saw.
That's what I saw too.
No, being there at the ground.
Oh, it doesn't make any difference. Like
you can
see when blokes aren't running for him, and like the simple fact is that he had 17 contested possessions, which is more than anyone else in the team. He went at
and then he'd turn it back over again with a stupid decision. At the ground, he had different decisions to make, and he went for the risky kicks.
He had the same amount of turnovers as still side bottom.
Phoenix, have you got his efficiency rate there?
His disposal efficiency was 73%. Still side bottom, who was probably best on ground, had 62.8%.
Oh, yeah.
See, I'm not trusting those efficiency rates because what I saw, he kept turning the ball over. He kept burning his teammates. He kept giving the ball to teammates he shouldn't have when there were actually better options for him to take. That's what that's what you guys weren't seeing on the TV, and that's what we were seeing at the ground.
A guy who worked his ass off, risked his body, got the lot.
Nope.
Well,
you can't deny that he didn't work, Nikki, because he was one of...
worked.
Of course he
worked. But he worked badly. I was... wanted to...
Yeah, we'll have to disagree on that one.
No more comment, move on.
Yeah, I mean, let's look at his numbers. 18 kicks, 19 handballs. He took 5 marks, 3 tackles, 4 inside 50s, 3 clearances, 6 rebound 50s, 17 contested possessions, 3 score involvements. He turned it over 7 times. He took 10 intercept possessions. So,
the others had played as badly as him.
Yeah, I think if he had a bit more look when he lifted his eyes and saw what was going on up ahead of him, it's probably little wonder that he panicked a little bit. Anyway, in terms of stats, Seedsman was next on the list. He had 29 touches, 16 and 13. Took 7 grabs, 6 tackles, which is good. But unfortunately for Seed, he did. Now, Seed's turnovers were noticeable. He had 11 clangers and turned it over 12 times. He went at 58.6. So he did. I mean, your criticism of Laird, Nicky, that's exactly what I would have said for Seedsman.
And yeah, I preferred Seedsman's game over Laird's 100 times better.
Yeah, but Seedsman cost us goals.
First 3 goals. No, the first 3 goals were Laird turnovers.
Okay.
Laird turnovers. Collingwood's first 3 goals were Laird.
Look, I can't even watch the replay because I've deleted the bloody game.
No, Laird started the game badly and he never got better.
Okay. We had Rory Atkins on 28 touches, 16 and 12, took 8 marks.
Do we run smelling salts out to players? I thought he's going to faint at least twice out there.
8 contested possessions on a wet night for a midfielder.
At least they played him and Aish on each other. The pair of them keep hearing footsteps.
There were times he was all right. There were times he was all right. I can remember twice he nearly fainted, seriously, in fear.
Look, I thought Bryce was probably our best, and we'll get to our Jet Award. But even Bryce's game, I thought he didn't get involved enough. He had 27 disposals, 19 and 8. Took 4 marks, kicked a couple of goals, 3 tackles, 8 inside 50s, and 6 clearances. But he only had
He's quite accumulator. You're right. When you look at how many, I was thinking he was relatively quiet, and you look at his positions, and he's had 27.
Well, because he played very much outside on.
Yeah, he did.
Probably more so than in previous weeks. He only had the 7 contested posies. Did use the ball better than most. And was involved in scores 8 times, and as I said, he was our joint clearance winner. But
being totally honest, he was our only A grader in the midfield.
Well, here's a stat for you, Macca. We've got 2 blokes that have played less than 25 games, and they were the blokes that we've entrusted to go in and get the ball. Huey Greenwood and Cameron Ellis-Yolmen both. Huey Greenwood had 16 contested possessions. Ellis-Yolmen had 12. Cam Ellis-Yolmen had 6 clearances. Huey had a couple.
Huey looked really slow. Even his movement.
So did Cameron.
They both did.
Everyone they did. But at least Ellis-Yolmen, he was getting closer to the ball, but he was doing what you said last week. He's keeping the body out and just trying to reach him with his hands. He's got that body. He needs to go in.
They both went at under 60% disposal efficiency. Ellis-Yolmen turned it over 9 times. I thought his disposal was panicky and sloppy.
But in fairness to them, you'd have to say, though, Phoenix, that they really meant to be numbers 5 and 6.
Absolutely.
They're not meant to be numbers 1 and 2.
Well, and that was the point I was about to make. Huey had 24 touches, Cam had 19. I've gone through some of their other stats. And then we have a look at our 2 senior midfielders, Rory Sloane and Richard Douglas. Rory Sloane had 16 touches, only 4 kicks. Only 4 kicks for the game, Rory Sloane.
Very poor game.
He didn't want to kick it.
Well, then he shouldn't bloody be out there.
Precisely.
What is going on with our medical staff that they allow a guy that comes to play a game of AFL football where he doesn't want to kick the ball? Well, what is going on? That's just ridiculous. 3 marks, 3 clearances, 12 contested, which you're always going to get from Rory, but he only went at 50% disposal efficiency. Only 117 metres gained, 2 turnovers. I mean, what was the point? We would have been better served having young Knight in or bringing Hampton back in.
Absolutely.
They were fit. They both played the SANFL. Knight, I think, was our leading touch winner in the SANFL. Maybe not our best player, but he certainly got the ball.
No, SANFL was a very even contribution, but Knight was well ahead of
Hampton.
Hampton.
I think Hampton got a lot of clearance, but he didn't rack up huge disposal numbers, I think.
Yeah, because we weren't playing him in the middle all the time. He was actually being the high half forward, so he was often doing the one running in off the back of the square. A couple of times he was centre, but it was the SNFL actually had a really nice even contribution across it.
Yeah. The other bloke in the midfield, as I mentioned, Richie Douglas, and I'll continue to burn this guy, Mac. I don't care what you say. 7 and 7 from a 220 game player or 250 game player, whatever the hell he is. 7 and 7 from a senior midfielder on a wet night he doesn't deserve to be in the team. 3 marks,
I agree.
8 tackles, only 1 inside 50, only 5 contested possessions for the whole night. Went at under 65% disposal efficiency, only gained 160 metres, turned it over 5 times, was out on the ground for 84% time on ground, and all he could give us was 14 touches. Meanwhile, Sidebottom, Treloar, Grundy, Pendlebury, all 30-plus possessions.
Oh, well, you take a bloke like Tom Phillips for them, who's only probably about a second or third year player, and he
31 touches.
31 touches.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, you did right, but he just not enough. Not enough.
I mean, if you have a look,
half a game, not a full game.
Oh, look. Well, let's have a look at contested possessions in double figures for Adelaide. Rory Laird 17, Hugh Greenwood 16, Rory Sloane 12, Ellis-Yolmen 12, Taylor Walker 10. Here are the numbers for Collingwood. Sidebottom 26, Grundy, the Ruckman 23, Treloar 19, Phillips 14, Hoskin Elliott 13, Crisp 10. I mean, not only do they have... I mean, the numbers are huge. The disparity is huge, and also the spread is a lot bigger. So, very, very disappointing.
We're going to get spanked on Friday night again if they keep that up.
Well,
anyway,
I can't see what's going to change.
No, look, there's a couple of other players I want to mention. I thought that I feel like we've got a big decision as a club to make over the next month on a couple of players. I think Dougie is one. I think David McKay is another, albeit he tries very hard, David McKay. I never doubt him for trying, but 16 possessions from the bloke who has played more games than anyone else in this team is just not good enough. Wayne Miller, patchy form.
We were using him at the start we were using him up forward, and as we noted the last couple of weeks, he's better off that half-back line. And when we moved him around in that second half, and you could see he at least was trying to extract the ball and get it out. So for me, he was one of our okay players because of where we were positioning him.
I wouldn't say okay.
How things were coming in. Yeah, I know, but
I understand what you're saying.
That as a very low baseline.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
He seems to be a ready-made half. He seems to be an Andrew McLeod off half-back type to me.
Oh, he's perfect off of there.
We only got 200 metres gained off him, and 16 touches.
Because we didn't put him there until the second half, and he should have been there from the start. I think that's what we did because we brought Fogarty in, yes, but who we actually replaced Murphy with is we replaced him with Miller.
Yeah.
So we took Miller off of our wing and our half-back rotation and put him up forward.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Nikki. It looked like we were using Darcy as a rotation tool for Tex and Jenkins and even Lynch. And we actually, you're right, replaced Murphy with Miller in that lineup. Miller seems to me to be the best when he's running at the ball in a straight line, which was how Macca was early in his career.
Yep.
The ball coming at him, he doesn't have to worry too much. He just has to run through and take the ball. And he's looked at his best.
He's got beautiful timing.
Yeah, and his core's improved.
And his confidence would rise as well. Because, as you say, he could attack the ball and run straight with it and then dispose of it to a man.
Yeah.
He build a game around it.
Well, certainly
he's got beautiful disposal.
Certainly that's been where he's looked the most convincing this season, has been running in a straight line off that halfback. So I don't know why they don't see that and go, all right, well, there's something to work with, because we know he's got good pace. He's built up his strength. He's able to stay over the ball more this season by the looks. The knock on him has always been a bit like Charlie Cameron, just not getting involved enough. So let's get him involved. Let's utilise his strengths. But, what do we know? The other bloke I want to talk about is Tex Walker. It's almost time to have a conversation about Tex Walker, in my opinion.
Shocking.
I think we're almost there.
You mean dropping him?
Yep. If his foot's not right, Macca, why are we playing him? It's the same as Sloane. Why are we playing these people?
His foot's fine.
Well, then he's got no excuses. He should be getting more than 7 and 6.
He didn't play very well, Nicky.
Well, none of our forwards bloody played well.
No, but he hasn't played well for a long period of time. He flashes in and out of games. He does the spectacular 55-metre turn and goal. He laces blokes out when he's playing high and on transition. But with Tex Walker and Josh Jenkins, we do not have focal points. We don't have blokes we can kick to. One of those blokes has to stand up. And at the moment, we all know Jenkins, and I'll get to him in a moment, but Tex really hasn't stood up and given us 4 quarters of standout forward work for a number of years now.
Well, you were actually talking about that last year, that he still didn't have confidence in his knee.
Well, whatever it
right?
is.
No. So last year was fine because he didn't have confidence in his knee. But now this year you're saying, but he didn't do it last year. But
I'm not saying it was fine. I'm saying that we can't continue to tolerate.
You need to take that. Well, no, he was coming back from a freaking knee reconstruction
3 years ago.
Right,
we've moved on, right?
And he did have foot problems last year. I know those.
So
have
what's
actually
going on
been
now, Nick?
Pretty much sorted
because his form line hasn't changed. So
he's only just come back into the team.
His form line has not changed for the last. And we 3
saw last
years.
week, for when we actually started to play properly. Last week, how did he look? He looked like he was before. No, he looked like he was before the knee.
No.
The way he was moving and everything. Excuse me, that mark, the way he was moving, that was a lot freer than I have seen him do for years. The entire team had an absolute dog of a game on Friday night. I'm not willing to hang him yet because of the entire team having... because of the entire team having a dog of a game.
You guys weren't willing to hang Sam Jacobs last week either. Turns out I was right
No,
about
because
that
I didn't think it was so bad last week. But this week I want him dropped for Paul Hunter, who's a rookie.
Yeah, maybe I can just see things a little bit earlier than you guys then.
Nah.
Oh, well. History suggests I might, Nick, actually.
No, that won't.
Let's move on. Oh, there's been a few. Richie Douglas.
Well, you know they won't drop him anyhow. But
Anyway.
But his form was he played very disappointingly.
Tex is not worth a pinch of shit at the moment up forward. He's just not worth a pinch of shit.
No.
And neither is Josh Jenkins. Not worth a pinch of shit.
Oh, yes, you stole my next line.
Sorry, mate.
No, you're in charge, mate. And I was going to say exactly that he's playing about the same level as his mate Josh Jenkins, and to think we're paying that bloke $550,000 a year for that.
Oh, look, it's horrific. It's horrific.
Nikki, don the togs and get out there, girl. We'll
God, no. No, you haven't seen me play.
We'll pay you half of what he gets, and you probably go as well.
The thing is, and it's more a conversation for Tuesday Night Live, but when you look at the moves that could have been made with shifting Jenkins to Brisbane and maybe going a year earlier on Gibbs and a couple of other things, wow. This team, because I tell you, one of the reasons why we're going so shit in the midfield is because we've got no one pushing through. With the two Crouch boys out, we're relying on two 25 gamers to get our contested ball, and we've got no one in the twos really. You could probably make a case for Curtly Hampton, but only just. We've got no one else in the twos that's pushing through, so we are in deep shit in our midfield at the moment.
Paulke actually performed very well.
Yeah, but he's a rookie, Nick. That's the
know,
point.
but he's still on our list. He's still a player we can bring in.
But it's not going to solve a problem next week.
Yeah, I think
he does play that. He plays a role we're actually not having. Well, I think that Greenwood and Ellis Yeoman are lacking in at the moment, in that he is the bullocking, the blocker, the create space.
Yeah, but you're missing Phoenix's point. What he's saying is the fact that we don't have the two Crouches, and you don't really have Sloane before we like Sloane can. See, without those three, we are in deep shit. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
So you do what Clarkson did, and you start flooding the kids.
So it doesn't matter who you put there, Nicky. We're going to go shit house.
Don't know.
The trouble is but the thing is, Nicky, if you replace seniors with kids, and we've already got kids, all of a sudden it's lambs to a slaughter. You can't have a situation where you've got Bryce Gibbs, Hugh Greenwood, Ellis Yeoman, Miles Paholke, Jordan Gallucci. They will get absolutely slaughtered, and that doesn't do anyone any good. We need blokes like Richard Douglas and Rory Sloane to earn their keep, to actually play like senior players. And good players, good senior players can play hurt. You can't tell me that a bloke like Luke Hodge didn't play the last 100 games of his career on 1.5 legs, and yet the bloke was still an absolute champion. Sam Mitchell, these blokes, they could play hurt. Blokes like Rory Sloane and Richard Douglas, they have to learn to play in adversity, and that's the problem with this team. We don't seem to be able to play in adverse circumstances.
And they seem to have their levels, and they don't seem to rise when the situation demands it.
Well, you said to me last week, Macca, that Richie Douglas should be excused because he didn't have the blokes around him. And what I said to you last week, and this isn't an I told you so situation, it's just an extension of the conversation. I said last week that Richard needs to step up as a senior player. And
that is fair comment.
And like Friday night was a classic example. Bryce, him, and Sloaney were our senior midfielders. Two of those three got less than 20 possessions. Douglas got less than 15. Two of those three got less than 10 contested possessions.
Yeah, what that tells you, he's not capable of stepping up that next level.
And I think most of us have probably known that for quite some time, haven't we?
Yeah.
So why do we persist? We got rid of a bloke, Jared Lyons, who everyone said was just vanilla, and yet you put him... You give him some responsibility, which he could have had instead of Richard Douglas in the Adelaide lineup, and he would have given us 30 touches. Meanwhile, we're getting 15 stinkers from Dougie.
Yeah, when you've got your full midfield in, and Dougie's the fifth man or the sixth man, and it looks okay. But of course, when the main men aren't there, well then he's supposed to step up. He's not capable of doing that.
And that's where you should be. A good coach and a good club should be able to assess that sort of. That I mean, that's about understanding the ceiling of players. You know, when you've got Jared Lyons, who's played maybe 70 or 80 games, and he's bringing the same or more in some respects than Richard Douglas on 220, then surely you think, well, maybe Lyons has got more upside.
The one thing, of course, it doesn't matter. That's where Lyons in a way, he would have helped us a little bit, but not a lot, because the one thing where that midfield lacks absolutely is pace.
That's very true. And losing Cameron off the back of the square, I don't know why they haven't been playing Betts off the back of the square. They don't play Miller off the back of the square.
Yeah, they were. Yeah. Miller was coming on off the back in the first half. Betts was doing it in the last couple of weeks.
But not a lot, no.
Betts has come off the square maybe twice, Nicky. And Miller the times that he's playing off half-back, he's not actually coming in and being part of the centre clearance. You're right, Macca. We lack pace through the midfield. Yeah. The one thing that we always liked about Jared Lyons, I think, Nick, you'll agree with this one, is his ability to distribute inside 50. He was fantastic at hitting targets
lovely.
Inside
good
50.
Use of the ball. Yeah. But at the moment, though, of course, with Charlie Cameron gone, Charlie gave that extra little dash and he made the. Yeah, I know, but when he did it, he really made the team look quicker. He made the whole team look quicker because of the pace he moved at. And Eddie would seem to respond better to it as well. Because at the moment, he's on one cylinder at the moment.
2 and 4 came off with hamstring soreness, which is probably going to end up being a 3-week tear. Lockie Murphy's out, so we're going to have Riley Knight come into that forward line as our only small option. He's doesn't really play as a small forward.
But at least he's going to bloody chase.
Yeah, well, the bloke that had a good game in the Sandful is Ben Jarman, and maybe it's time to give him a run up forward. Maybe it's time to give Ben Jarman a debut, because we don't have a lot else going on up forward in terms of small forwards. But they'll end up playing Betts on one leg, because that's what they seem to want to do.
That would be a big mistake if they do.
Well, they've been making that mistake with Tex and Sloaney all season, so,
Oh, you can see it. You can see it.
All right. Any last comments?
Yeah, I just want to say that my man Hardigan, Mr. Lobotomy, his decision-making was terrible at times again on the weekend.
Yeah, under siege a bit, though, Macca.
He was under siege, but I shudder when he does things instinctively, like if he hasn't got any time to think, he's okay. It's when he's got maybe taken a mark and he's gone back and he's got time to look around and think. You just know he's going to take the wrong option.
Yeah. I'm willing to excuse a key defender because it's...
Well, they were under a lot of pressure, I agree with that.
It's not his... And let's be honest, neither Reed or Cox really hurt us. It was that young lad.
No, they didn't.
Young lad, bloody... what's his name?
It was them isolating him and... Yeah, on the fast breaks.
Yeah, I thought
that's where he did it. I thought Talia actually had a decent game. I thought he handled Cox quite well.
Talia was all right.
Did you practice that line, Nicky? Or
no? He handled Mason quite well.
Oh, dear.
Well, man of many practices.
Anyway. Of the rest, I mean, I'm even sick of talking about Jenkins. So, Jenkins gave us what he always gives us: a big pile of steaming dog turd. I thought
he got E out of contested mark. Excuse me.
Yeah, I know it wasn't that. Like when we can pinpoint the one contested mark that he makes, that's. Come on.
I know you want to slag off on him, but in terms of our forwards, he was one who was actually trying and fighting. And did actually put his body on the line. The things that you've hanged him for previously, he was actually trying to do it. There was a lack of support around him.
Well, that's hard. You could argue is that. One comment I would like to make, though, McGovern, he did get transferred back to the back line for a while, Nikki.
Yep.
And again, looked good there.
Yes, he does.
He looks like a natural backman.
Well, his brother's an All-Australian
Yeah.
backman.
Yeah, no, he just looked like a natural. And when he was up forward, he was barely in the play at all. But when he went back again, I just thought he looked pretty good.
He developed this thing this year, Mitch, of running under the ball when the ball's coming in, which is a real lack of confidence from forward.
Yeah,
You know, it's worried about what's behind you and all that sort of stuff when you start jumping early and running under the ball. So I don't know, maybe it's a confidence issue.
But 2 weeks in a row, though, they've moved him in the second half into the back lines, and he's looked good. So
yeah,
maybe that's just.
I think
maybe
we
you play him there to run him into form.
Well, maybe, but I mean, we need marking options up forward too.
And who do you then take out of the back lines?
Exactly. You know, I mean, I think they had Fogarty back there at some point.
And he actually does look good when he goes back as well. It's interesting that the pair of them actually they judge the ball really well in the back lines.
They both got most of their kicks there.
I know.
Fogarty's a damn good player.
Yeah, he is.
But it's too early for him. It's too early for him. And having him in the team on Friday night, irrespective of the weather, it was just the wrong call selection wise. It was just the wrong call.
So wrong.
Anyway, let's get on to our awards, or awards if you want to call them that. And as usual, we went out to Twitter and asked you guys what you thought. And first of all, our Jet Award for the week was pretty slim pickings. Most people went for Gibbs, a few for Seed, and a bit of support for Lairdy. Personally, I think probably Gibbs.
Well, I would have probably had him in that order: Gibbs, Seed, and Laird.
Yeah, probably.
I wouldn't have had the third one there.
Once again, the people probably got it right.
Probably got it right, yeah.
I like this probably. We're not even going to concede. Oh, you maybe did.
Well,
no, that's not derogatory.
Really.
It is such a small field of good players to pick from that they probably have got it right by default even.
I mean, I think the two young lads worked really hard, you know, Greenwood and Ellis Yeoman. I think they worked really hard.
They tried.
They tried. And as I said earlier,
Greenwood didn't chase. He was really slow on that chasing back.
He's playing inside.
I know, but even when they're getting that ball and his opponent is running forward, he's got to go with them.
Well, maybe he's just not fit enough yet.
He wouldn't have caught him in a mad fit, Nicky.
No, but at least you actually attempt to put some pressure on.
But maybe that was the seed of our inability to cover them defensively on the spread, was the fact that we've got blokes like Ellis Yeoman and Greenwood who aren't 100% fit or haven't built up enough of an engine to be able to go with them, or maybe they're too one-paced. You know, maybe Huey and Ellis Yeoman. I mean, Ellis Yeoman, I think we already agree, is a very one-pace player. It's not something I'd really observed from Greenwood, but we've never really seen Huey out in the open having a run, have we? So
no, he's always in the contest.
Yeah, you know, maybe there's only room for one of those, and maybe we were too slow. I mean, Mackie, you've already mentioned we're too slow.
Well, at the moment they're both there because we haven't got anybody else.
Yeah.
But, who knows?
I mean, let's be honest. We've got Wayne Miller, who was a first round draft pick. We've got Jordan Gallucci in the twos, who's a first round draft pick. These are and they're both runners. They've both got pace. They're both outside runners. So maybe
spot on.
We just need to be putting those blokes where they play, and surrounding them with and taking one of Green. Maybe we can't have both Greenwood and Ellis Yeoman in. Maybe one of them's got to come out for a Gallucci or a move with Miller.
Look, what you said makes sense, but how it's going to play out in practice might be that we actually go backwards even a little bit further, because at least the two big bodies actually can get the ball. whether...
Well, they
Yeah,
didn't
but then
in
who did
stoppage. We had 18
didn't in
stoppage
stoppage.
clearances.
And then who do they give it to?
Yeah.
That's the problem.
But we should. I do think we should be starting to play Galucci, because if we don't, he's never going to develop.
Well, look, I agree. I think, I mean, we picked up Jordan at the expense of drafting Bryce Gibbs, so we want to get value for that pick. And if we're not going to play him, that just probably costs us a flag. But anyway, I think the other thing too is I think we could probably afford to play Gibbs a little bit more inside. Drop one of Greenwood or Ellis Yeoman. I'd probably at this stage lean towards Ellis Yeoman, but probably depends on fitness more than anything else. And
he'd be the one I'd drop in preference.
Yeah, and then try and give a little bit more inside, so that we can bring in a couple of outside runners, get a bit more pace through that midfield. That's about all I can see. But it's got to be defensive spread as well, Macca. That's where we're getting towed.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, we are. No doubt about it.
Anyway, our best young gun on Friday night, pretty easy, really, that we only had the three, Greenwood, CY and Duday. Oh, and Darcy, is, of course.
Tom.
The public have given it a draw between Greenwood and Duday. Well...
You right there, Nicky?
I have no idea.
Our listeners have no idea. You heard it first. Our listeners have no idea.
Yeah, but we told them they had no idea a couple of weeks ago as well on the Young Gun.
There's no way it was Duday.
When it was so obviously Duday.
There was no way was it Duday. No way. Not in a pink fit.
No, he played better.
No, he
Nicky.
didn't. He really didn't.
I thought Duday was all right, but it was one of his lesser games, I thought, Nicky.
Yeah, considering how much the ball was
and
down
that's
there.
the pressure. Yeah, and that's the pressure from the midfield that was lacking, which is one of those is Greenwood.
That's right.
So therefore, Greenwood, no.
Well, yeah, okay. Well, for me, Greenwood was probably the best of our young guns.
I agree with that one.
13 and 11, 5 tackles, 2 clearances, 16 contested possession, just turned it over a bit too much and didn't probably cover back hard enough on defensive spread.
What do you mean probably? He didn't.
But he had plenty of mates and probably was more effective or influential, I would say, on the game overall than Duday, who I thought was a little quiet.
But I will say this about both of them.
A midfielder is supposed to be influential. A backman isn't.
Oh, a good one can be.
Rory Laird, not influential?
Oh, God, no.
So Rory Laird is not influential?
For Collingwood, yeah.
No, I mean overall. Rory Laird isn't influential. He's a backman.
You'll get nothing out of it.
Not tonight. I'm pissed. I am so pissed at him.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I think we noticed that.
Yeah, we got that. The Wake Up Award this week, there could have been a cast of thousands, but predictably Sauce won that one this week, and I don't disagree with that, over JJ and Douglas.
He pissed it in, didn't he?
I don't know. I like Footsteps. Come on, can't Rat get it 3 weeks in a row?
Well, he did get 28 touches.
Yeah, but no, look, I'm one of his greatest critics, and I did see him nearly faint a couple of times. But I thought it was the second half, particularly the last quarter. At least he was trying his arse off to get the ball. Then I just thought there was a lift in his effort after half time.
Yeah,
that's probably because he got yelled at.
Yeah, but I don't think you can. I mean, I've had a gutful of Atkins, but I don't think you can bag him for being an outside player because that's what he is. So, yes, he does shit himself when the ball's in tight, but that's who he is. That's what it is. But if he gets the ball out and operates, if he gets the ball on the outside, operates at 75% and gains 700 metres, it's probably what you want from your wingman.
Yep, and also the only thing I would like from him is to dispose of the ball a little bit quicker, not hang on it quite as long. There was one there, I think it was around about the half-back flank, I think it was, that he overhung on the ball and he thought he was going to be clever and dance around, and he went for holding the ball. So instead of us clearing the ball went the other way, and I can't remember what happened after that, but I was so angry about what he did. But he's got ability to get the ball, and he can use it as well. But no, I guess you're right. We'll have to just accept that he's never going to win the Courage Stakes.
Well, I just don't. If we're gonna talk about Wake Up Award, like worst on ground, you can't give that to a 28 possession player when you've got blokes like Jenkins and Sauce that
Yeah, I think that's the greatest beating I've ever seen Sauce get. So I think Sauce has to get it.
Yeah, I would agree. What do you reckon, Nick?
I hated so many players that night.
So who do you want to give it to?
Sauce.
Okay.
You've never heard me like this before, have you, Macca?
No, you're very vengeful tonight. You're so vengeful.
They made me think I was back watching the Robert Shaw years. They deserve all the shit they can get for that.
The one thing I will say is that it's round 4, and we're in the middle of April, and we all know it's a long season, and there's a long time for the team and the club to get this right. But I think for mine, there's probably some fitness issues, but the main issue seems to be in the head, as far as I'm concerned.
A lot of it's in the head. There's no doubt about it. There is a major problem in the sense of key players missing, and I do think that we're running probably at about 85% of the team that we were, but then that's been exacerbated by attitude on top of that. So, it's firstly the manpower, then secondly attitude, and end up the wreckage that we've got.
I think, though, Macca, there's a case for the coaching staff to be realistic about the squad that's available and go, geez, we're up against it here. We're down 2 or 3 in our midfield rotation. We're a bit short on small forwards, blah, 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 blah. So you change your game style. You try and win a couple ugly rather than just persist with a game style that the team that you're putting on the park can't sustain.
One thing I liked about the Richmond game is that we won that ugly, and you were dead right. There was nothing pretty about that particular game, and there was nothing particularly brilliant about that game. But I thought it was a game that our players won by a sheer effort, and I'd like to see a repeat of that every week, not just once in a blue moon.
Well, we've got to see a repeat of that next week on Friday night, Sydney v Adelaide at the SCG, or else it's going to be 2 Friday night embarrassments in a row for Adelaide.
I think we'll get murdered. If we transport across to Sydney what we took out onto the ground this Friday night, it'll be between 10 and 20 goals. If we take that same form and attitude there, I think we'll be a little bit better than that, but there's no way we'll win it.
Well, if we bring what we brought against Collingwood, it will tell the supporter base that we are not serious about atoning for getting towed up last grand final. It's as simple as that. You don't bring that sort of attitude. Everyone has a down week, and the weather was terrible and blah, 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 blah. Collingwood were hungry. Everyone has a week. Even the great Hawthorn and Geelong sides had those weeks.
Yeah, they did.
Yep.
So that's fine. But if you bring that a couple of weeks in a row, and let's face it, Essendon wasn't pretty. St Kilda, we won ugly. Really, the only game, as you rightly point out, Macca, that we've really, what I would consider, turned up for was the Richmond game.
Yep.
So, and they've got to realise that winning games early on, particularly when you're a bit hurt and down a few players, it's just invaluable. If you can break even and then get your best 22 on the park in the second half of the season, it really sets you up. But at the moment, we're in danger of falling behind the 8 ball.
The other thing too is, if you do give maximum work rate and it starts to get results, it also builds confidence. And once you build confidence, you start to play a little bit better as well. Yep. So, it's a whole cycle. And if you're not giving 100% effort, it goes in reverse the other way around.
Yep.
And at the moment, what we're seeing is the other way around, because I thought they hit rock bottom on Friday night.
Well, we are outside the 8 after the end of round 4, and it's been a while since a team has been outside the 8 at round 4 and won a flag. But the only saving grace on that, I think it's the first time for, I can't remember how many years, where we don't have an undefeated team after 4 rounds. So I think 1997 maybe.
Yes.
So
we had Donkey on Tuesday night come out with a marvellous stat. We were supposed to all lie flat on our backs. There was only one change to the 8 after round 3.
Yeah, that blew me away.
I hope you're listening, Donkey.
Was that a hint of sarcasm I noted there?
No, not at all.
Oh, God, how could you say that?
No, it wasn't a hint. I don't think it was a hint. I think it was a whole lot.
Yeah. So it's shaping up to be a fairly even sort of a year, I think. We've got, a bunch of teams on 3-1, then a bunch of teams on 2-2. We've only got 4 teams that have only won 1 or 0 games already this season. So, and percentages across the board are squashed.
You really have to take your chances when there are there.
Exactly right, Nick.
Exactly right. So,
and I have to say, although we've been extremely negative that tonight, and look, we're only talking about what we saw, and what we saw was enough to make you talk negative. However, as we say, that if they were to bring the same attitude and effort that we saw in the Richmond game, well, then anything's possible.
Yeah, I'm not one for suggesting that the team owes supporters anything, but when you got 40-odd thousand people turn up in that bloody shitful weather on Friday night to go and watch their team, and their team doesn't, they do deserve better than that. I mean, the team plays for the team, and we support. But if 40,000 people had the nuts to turn up in that disastrous weather, then
bloody cold.
Surely 22 blokes could run out there and go, geez, you know what? We've got an excellent bunch of supporters to get out here and support us under this. Let's give them some effort. They gave nothing, and that's really disappointing. Anyway, let's wind that up. Nikki, you can have the final say.
Yeah, I just think what it is we actually have an expectation of our team now, and we're not accepting anything below that. And that was very much below what we would find acceptable for our team.
Absolutely. All right, let's finish up with the cock-wombling numbnut of the week award. Nikki, what do you got for us?
Well, I'm going to give some kudos to the Collingwood cheer squad who decided they couldn't spell tonight last week. Yeah. But the back of their banner on Friday night, sorry, well done. That was brilliant. Yeah. So they actually get a kudos. I think it's only between 2 people this week. Although some others have kind of made a bit of a late run with Gill with his stupid signing the another 20 years on top. Yeah, well done. Oh, you dipshit. I think Gill was just jealous that the AFL were not going to win a cock-wombling none of the week, so he's given it a really good try, but he cannot go past Sam Papa and David Koch after what happened. And for me, I think I have to give it to Koshy. Because Palpepper alleged.
Are you talking about the Monk comment?
Yes. And the other way that he came out and what he said about it was absolutely freaking disgraceful from a chairman of a football club. If that was our chairman, I would be calling for his head. And I actually don't think he would be in place anymore if he'd made that comment. It was just absolutely disgraceful. That's not how you deal with this type of situation.
Certainly.
Even if it is only allegation, etc., they have proven what Port Adelaide are once again showing you how not to handle a scandal.
Well, the thing is, they were making these comments before the investigation had been completed, so they were already victim shaming. And it wasn't just Koshy.
No, it wasn't.
It was every mouth. Travis spoke, a couple of others that spoke, Brett Ebert, I think, all the same. We don't know what happened, but, maybe blah, blah, blah. It's like, hang on a moment. You can't just hook into someone who's made an allegation, true, false, or otherwise, and to make those comments, and then for Koshy to basically underpin it with his own comments. It probably just shows the calibre of the club.
At least Hinkley and Bassett towards the end of the week. Obviously, the PR people kind of went, did come out and they put the onus back pretty much onto Palpepper. There were some still little slight comments going in there, but overall it was actually they were trying to deflect it and was aiming it more about Palpepper being out when he shouldn't have, putting himself in a situation, etc.
Ken Hinkley said what the chairman should have said.
Yeah.
Have you listened? Ken Hinkley, he made no bones about it.
Yeah.
And he said it's a very serious allegation.
That club is a joke of a club. Like, we all remember the Port Adelaide of the SANFL era, and they are a shadow of that club. They are not even close. They are deflective. They blame everyone else but themselves. They're insular. They're
parasites. They're parasites.
Yeah, and like even a bloke like Kane Collins, and a couple of blokes have brought this up on the chat, and I brought it up on Twitter this morning. Kane Collins, who's supposed to be a journalist, a sports journalist, right? He's an opinion, but he's so openly biased that he, on his own Facebook page, posts anti-Crows memes and stuff like that.
He does, yeah. It's not wrong.
That's the equivalent of Dermot Brereton posting anti-North Melbourne memes, or, you know, any one of those blokes that have played football, you know, posting memes about a team that they can't stand. Now, you don't see Mark Rasciuto or anyone like that in the media posting anti-Port rubbish. In fact, our club, in terms of our ex-players, are generally quite supportive of Port Adelaide in their media roles. And yet we've got this tosser that hasn't got one nut between his legs that will hide behind his social media accounts, because, of course, you can't banter back at Kane Corns because he'll just block you, just like his mentor, Michelangelo Rucci. So he'll fire these little shots and then he'll go and hide behind his little block wall on Twitter. And I just wonder how Kane feels, how Graham Corns feels about having a son that is so embracing of gutter journalism just to make a name for himself. At least Graham Corns was able to have some discords, but Kane Corns
Graham used to. I
know what Graham used to do.
He liked the dump button.
Yeah,
he would start to have an argument, and then he would never ever allow that person to actually reply back to his. Yeah,
you're not wrong. Graham was very arrogant in the way that he commented, but Kane has taken it to another level.
Yeah.
Yeah, I certainly experienced with Graham quite a lot of times.
Yeah.
Same. And that's often when we were winning the argument, Macca, correct?
Because we were winning the argument.
I mean, you can't be a credible sports journalist and openly be at war with a team supporter base. You lose all credibility at that point. I can't think of any other sports journalist in the country that has such an open vendetta against a particular team supporter base. It's childish. It's so petty and childish, and it really underscores what type of bloke Kane Corns is. And it's little wonder, as I mentioned on Twitter this morning, it's little wonder that in professional circles, both in journalism and also in his failed Metro Fire Service career of about 7 minutes, that he's not held in very high regard amongst his colleagues.
I just don't know how he's got his media career. I just can't work it out.
He got kissed on the dick by Craig Hutchison. Craig Hutchison was looking for a South Australian identity to put in his stable. Warren Treadray would have been probably a little bit too steadfast in his own opinions. Probably wouldn't
and
have
would
wanted
actually
to
be
change.
honest.
Yep,
and not run the line that they want.
Yep, that's right. And you can see Warren has really dropped off the radar as a consequence.
Which is a pity, because I always listened to what he said.
Yeah, I don't mind Treaders.
Might not have always agreed with it, but he argued it well.
Yeah, don't mind Treaders. And then, who else have you got in Adelaide media that would toe Hutchie's line? There's only one person.
Bickley would.
No, Bickley wouldn't be controversial.
No.
Bickley sits on the fence.
Yeah, he would sit on the fence.
Too clean, Nicky.
Yeah. So that's why Kane Corns has got a media career, because he's willing to be a grub for Craig Hutchison's Croc Media. Simple as that. Anyway, we're 1:29, so we need to wind this up. So are we going with Koshy for the rumbling number?
Easily.
Yep.
Yeah.
Happy with that.
Well, you guys have listened to us enough to know what our outro music is, so play that little outro music in your head. If you're listening,
Come along.
If you're listening on demand, hopefully I'll be able to slot some music in to the recording before you guys listen. Thanks very much for your ongoing support. The support that's so far this year for the CrowCast, both this show and also Tuesday Night Live, has been fantastic, and we really appreciate it. Make sure you share our links with your friends on Facebook and Twitter at AFL CrowCast. Give us a review on iTunes if that's the way you listen to us. Get around the website, aflcrowcast.com. We're very grateful, and we will see you again on Tuesday for Tuesday Night Live. Thanks, guys.
And then next Saturday, I won't be here, but Donkey Magoo will be coming in to take my place, so that ought to be hilarious.
Unconfirmed. I don't know whether I'll have Donkey on.
I've nominated him.
The one thing I will say is, and it's unconfirmed at this stage, but I reckon I beat him in Dream Team this week. How do you reckon he feels about that, Macca?
Well, ashamed, I would have thought.
Very ashamed.
Anyway, on that note, good night all, and we'll see you on Tuesday.
Night all.
Yeah, good night all.